Dumelang Sanibonani. Hi, my name is Banigele Mashiane. Today is the last day of the 15th Humanities and Social Sciences International Conference. We have been in conversations these past few days on problematizing Ubuntu as a critical project in the humanities and social sciences towards the healing and betterment of our society. Now we are talking to our interviewees to find out what they will be taking home from this whole experience. How would you define Ubuntu as a philosophy?
Wow, very interesting question there, since also our theme is based on Ubuntu.
Yes.
Ubuntu, as it says, the phrase says, Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu.
Okay.
But for me, it doesn't end there. Yeah, Ubuntu for me, as a young female growing, I see it as more than just a collective humanity.
For me, Ubuntu is about I am a human being first, ngumuntu kuqala, as a person, and then therefore fanele ngibuveze ubuntu bami in the community.
I can define Ubuntu as an African philosophy which promotes mutual recognition on our daily basis when we meet as people and in everything that we are doing on daily basis.
It's us wanting to reclaim our identity as Black people, also wants to reclaim our power, because one of its values also, it decolonizes, or it takes away these dilutions of colonial legacies, the oppressions, and the apartheid values also. So that's how I conceive Ubuntu by myself.
I think my definition of Ubuntu as someone who's coming from recreation and tourism, we've used actually our tourism industry as a draw card to make sure that there are more tourists coming to this country, using Ubuntu as a concept.
And then I demonstrate the notion of Ubuntu or the principles of Ubuntu through how I engage with my family, how I engage with my peers, how I engage in society, and how I engage in my workspace, and how I engage generally with people, knowing that they're human beings, by respecting people, respecting their ideas and opinions, respecting my students, respecting how I carry myself in society, respecting everybody's different opinions and views about life in general, and how I treat people.
And one of our biggest markets is coming from England, USA, and every time they come to this country, they come carrying the concept of Ubuntu, and every time they go back to their different countries, they preach and speak about highly of Ubuntu. In fact, if you understand Ubuntu broadly, you would realize that it's actually one of the concepts we've used to organize the 2010 World Cup.
What will you be taking home with regards to what we have been talking about, Ubuntu?
It was when different scholars were grappling with the concept of Ubuntu and how important it is for us to use our lived experiences in order to respond to the problems that we are currently facing.
Firstly, I think to do self-introspection when it comes to my lecturing, my teaching and learning, and try and infuse it in my curriculum development, not only through talking to my students or encouraging them or living by certain rules, but also incorporating it somehow in terms of the theories that I look at, and then assisting my students to be able to demonstrate that through their responses in terms of communication, through their academic life and through their academic writing.
My key takeaways from the conference, especially we've had like amazing keynote speakers. As a young person wanting to grow in academia, I was very impressed, and it motivated me to do more. So one of my key takeaways, especially Prof. Ramose, I liked how he tackled Ubuntu as saying that it's also, he sees it as African law.
We had presenters coming from the East, places like India, the Global South and the Global North community gathered here. For me, I think it also speaks of the growth and development of the University of Zululand as a university, more especially from an African node, the node for African thought perspective. And as I indicated earlier on, Ubuntu is one of the concepts that has actually, positioned the entire African continent to be where it is now.
For me, that was the most, it was the most intriguing argument for me, because in my paper also, I say, or I argue that I want to revitalize Ubuntu to contemporary society. So having such arguments of seeing Ubuntu as African law, it also gives me in my recommendations to also include that in the policies that are ingrained in our system or in the constitution, but we also need to prioritize African law, because one would argue that how can you integrate Ubuntu in the constitution, because to be blamed as to be unconstitutional.
And then also just being unapologetic about knowing that I am a person and the kind of person I am in my beliefs and values, even though knowing that we're different, that we're diversified, and that we have different opinions in terms of what is Ubuntu and how you relate to Ubuntu. And then also, I think so profoundly, one of the presenters spoke about how the people living with disabilities are overlooked, or they're not treated as Abantu enough, or our version of Ubuntu doesn't align with the person that they are, so therefore they're overlooked. That's something to ponder on and to go home and do self-introspection, because we also have students with different disabilities that are body able differently than us. So it's also important to check how do you relate with them, and Ubuntu Bako to demonstrate it on a daily basis. Kungabe something that is just by the way, but incorporate it into your own principles of life and way of life and living of life. So therefore I am, and therefore we are.
Yes.
Umuntu ngabantu.
Indeed.